Hello and welcome to Cultural Wealth Wednesdays. I'm thrilled you joined us today for what I believe will be a transformative conversation about recognizing, honoring, and leveraging the incredible assets that exist within our diverse communities. I'm Dr. Crystal L. Clemens, founder and CEO of Our Village Consulting, and I've dedicated over 15 years of my career to a simple but powerful belief. Every student, every family, and every community possesses incredible wealth that, when recognized and cultivated, can transform educational outcomes. As someone who has spent my career in school counseling and counselor education, I've witnessed firsthand how traditional deficit-based thinking can limit our vision of what's possible. But I've also seen the magic that happens when we shift our perspective to recognize the cultural wealth that surrounds us every day. Cultural Wealth Wednesdays is our weekly space to explore, celebrate, and learn how to leverage the diverse forms of capital that exist in our communities, what researcher Terry Yasso calls community cultural wealth. We're talking about the aspirational capital that drives families to dream big for their children, the linguistic capital found in multilingual households, the familial capital that creates strong support networks, the social capital built through community connections, the navigational capital that helps families persist through challenges, and the resistant capital that emerges from communities advocating for change. Each Wednesday, we'll dive deep into practical strategies for identifying cultural wealth in your school or community, building authentic partnerships that honor diverse perspectives, creating programming that builds on existing community assets, challenging systems that perpetuate deficit thinking, and developing your own cultural competence as an educator or leader. Cultural Wealth Wednesdays isn't just about changing how we think. It's about changing how we act. It's about building the kind of inclusive, asset-based educational communities where every child can thrive. So let's begin this journey together. Let's challenge ourselves to see wealth where others might see deficits. Let's build bridges where others might see barriers. Let's create the villages our children deserve. Welcome back to Cultural Wealth Wednesdays, where we are exploring the hidden forms of wealth that can drive organizational and educational success. Today, we're doing a deep dive into aspirational capital, one of the 6 forms of cultural wealth that can transform how you lead and how your institution performs. Today's focus is how the collective ability to dream, envision, and work towards possibilities becomes institutional infrastructure that drives real results. Aspirational capital represents the ability to maintain hopes and dreams for the future, even when facing significant barriers. But here's what's revolutionary for leaders. This isn't just individual resilience. It's institutional culture that can be systematically developed. A lot of us have heard the I Have a Dream speech. Dr. Martin Luther King gave that speech on the March on Washington. That speech is aspirational capital to its core. One line that Dr. King said was that he looks forward to the day when all of God's children, black men and white men, Jews and Gentiles, Protestants and Catholics, will be able to join hands and sing in the words of the old Negro spiritual, free at last, thank God Almighty. We are free at last. That is aspirational capital. Aspirational capital as cultural wealth challenges deficit thinking that focuses on what communities and organizations and schools and families and students lack. Instead, it recognizes that every community, every team, every student, every family has dreams, visions, and the capacity for transformation. Your role as a leader and educator is to identify, nurture, and leverage this existing cultural wealth. See, research consistently shows us that organizations and schools that have high aspirational capital, meaning the partners and the faculty and the families and the students and the staff and the teachers, everybody collectively believe that positive change is possible. They're the ones that outperform the predictions based on traditional resource metrics alone. See, this is cultural wealth in action. So here's where we're going to challenge traditional leadership thinking. Most leadership development focuses on fixing the problems, closing the gaps, managing limitations, all of those things. In fact, as educators, A lot of our school districts and schools have whole plans dedicated to closing the gap. That approach focuses on the deficits. If we come from the approach of cultural wealth, we're focusing on the assets, the possibilities, and the existing strengths. So when you lead with aspirational capital, you're not ignoring the challenges. That's not what we're saying here. We're saying that you're going to instead approach the challenges from a position of cultural wealth rather than deficit. Instead of asking, how do we fix what's broken? You're going to ask, how do we build on what's possible? This means reforming and reframing strategic planning around the possibility rather than the limitation. This means not planning for what the test scores say today, planning for what our goal is for the test scores to be 2 months, 3 months, 6 months from now. We're measuring progress towards the vision rather than just the compliance with the minimum standards. So how do you develop aspirational capital as cultural wealth? Well, first, you have to conduct an aspirational audit. What dreams, visions, and possibilities already exist within your organization, within your school, within your communities? Survey the partners and the families and the teachers and the students and the staff, not just about how they feel right now, their current satisfaction rates, but also survey them about their future aspirations. You will often discover the cultural wealth that you didn't even know was there and the cultural wealth you didn't know you needed. Second, create what I call possibility architecture. These are systematic structures that support and develop aspirational thinking. This might include vision development processes that engage the diverse partners and families. This might include strategic planning that starts with the ideal outcomes rather than the current constraints. And it recognizes the systems that celebrate the bold attempts along the successful outcomes. I know a lot of the constraints. One major one, budget. We know we hear this all the time. Another constraint may be time. We hear that a lot too. We know that there are a lot of resource constraints. But aspirational capital says that might be true, but how else can I tackle this? Third, align yourself and your resources with the aspirations. Cultural wealth isn't just about thinking differently. It's about investing differently. It's about acting differently. So when you allocate your budget, your time, and your personnel based on the growth possibilities, rather than just the maintenance needs, you are leveraging aspirational capital as institutional strategy. The fourth thing you can do is to develop the leaders, develop the teachers, develop the student leaders who can recognize and nurture aspirational capital in others. This means training administrators to see potential rather than just a problem. This means coaching the supervisors to ask possibility questions and creating development pathways for emerging leaders who demonstrate aspirational thinking. All right, so let's talk about the elephant in the room. The barriers, because we know they're there. Again, we're not ignoring the challenges. We're just coming up with a different way to tackle them. Some of these barriers might be the regulatory requirements, budget constraints, institutional inertia that just feels incompatible with aspirational leadership. But here's what successful cultural wealth leaders understand. These constraints become innovation catalysts when approached with aspirational capital. When the budget threatens to cut programs, the aspirational leaders ask, how might these limitations force us to discover a more effective approach? When regulations create compliance burdens, the leaders ask, how can we exceed requirements in ways that advance our mission? The key is funds of knowledge, recognizing that communities and organizations and schools and families and students and everybody possesses cultural wealth that can be leveraged to overcome structural barriers. Your partners bring expertise, they bring connections, they bring resources that traditional deficit approaches overlook. Also, remember this. Aspirational capital as cultural wealth requires collective development. Don't try to do it all at once. Don't try to transform the entire culture right away. won't work. You have to start somewhere. You start with the willing collaborators. You start with demonstrating results. And you start by gradually expanding the circle of possibility thinking. Cultural transformation is systemic, but it often starts with small groups who model aspirational capital in action. All right, so we have come to a segment that I will call the Cultural Wealth Wednesday Challenge. Okay, so here's your first Cultural Wealth Wednesday Challenge. Identify one area where your institution or your school is operating from deficit thinking rather than a cultural wealth perspective. How might aspirational capital transform your approach to that challenge? Remember, this is part of our comprehensive exploration of cultural wealth. Not only are we doing a deep dive into cultural wealth, we're going to do a deep dive into ourselves and our own mindsets. Hit subscribe, ring the notification button so you don't miss any Cultural Wealth Wednesday episodes. In the comments, I want you to share one aspiration you have for your organization or your school that excites you and challenges traditional thinking. Let's build a community of leaders who recognize cultural wealth in action.